evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
And we have a very, very fun one today. Being so embedded in the drive-in culture over the last 10 years has connected us with so many people, but it is without a doubt a community of supporters, owners, and operators that really make up the landscape of the current drive-in culture that we've been shining a light on this podcast. And certain names come up all the time where it's like, hey, you got to talk to this person, you got to talk to that person, or just actively in groups speaking openly with their knowledge, willingness to help other people. And Rick Cohen has been one of those guys that just has been a standout in the drive-in industry for so long, and a name that we have connected with the modern drive-in culture since we started here in 2014. And we are lucky enough to have sparked a friendship with Rick. He has quite the history running the Transit Drive-In and beyond. He is here to discuss all things drive-ins with us. Welcome, the great Rick Cohen.
Thank you. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me.
Oh, we know. You know, it's the best part of this podcast is connecting us with these people that not only have been the inspiration for us to push on and push against the grain, but it really does inform us on what is doable. You know, it's beyond an inspirational thing. It actually puts some of these ideas to the test and to work with the help of people like you. So thank you so much.
Well, there's a lot of inspiration that goes on back and forth all across the industry, and there already has. People see what works, what doesn't work. They see what people are doing, and they pick up on it. And there's nothing wrong with that. The retro idea has been done. You guys have really taken it to the next level, though, with what you're doing is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's support like that really helped us to kind of put the naysayers in the back of our mind and keep pushing with what we're doing. And, you know, you again are one of those guys that we always took the advice straight to the heart. I guess that's a good segue. How did you get involved with running a drive-in? What is your early story?
So the family history, my grandfather started building drive-ins in the late 1940s. 1949, he built the Dunkirk Van Buren drive-in. 1950, he built the Tonawanda Sheridan drive-in.
Yeah.
And in 1957, he took over and purchased the Transit drive-in that was built by another family in 1952. So my father took over the Transit in 1963 as manager and ran it for 30 years. I graduated high school in 1986, but I had started working at the drive-in probably in 1982, 1983. So by the time I graduated high school, I had 3 summers working there under my belt. I just kind of slid into the manager position. And my father, he'd had enough of doing everything, and he couldn't wait for me to take over certain duties like picking up supplies and taking care of the advertising, fixing the bathroom, toilets, all that kind of fun stuff.
Sure.
And by 1993, my father retired, moved to Florida, and I had everything. I had bookkeeping, everything, you name it. Hiring the staff, the whole bang, the whole show.
And for clarity for the listeners, the Transit was located where in the state of New York?
So Lockport, New York is a third-ring suburb of Buffalo, considered the Buffalo-Niagara region. So we draw mainly from Buffalo and its suburbs, Niagara Falls and its suburbs, about 1.5 million population.
Yep.
And plenty of support. It's been a very busy place to go see a movie for a very long time.
Yeah, it's always one that rose to the top of those lists all the time. Now, when your dad came in, what was the situation with the transit? Single screen? Did you guys add screens?
When my grandfather passed away in 1975, the drive-in theater was put into a trust. So all my father could do was run the business, and he didn't know from year to year, is it going to be sold? Is it going to close?
Oh, geez, yeah.
My grandmother passed away in 1986. And we really couldn't do a whole lot with the business until my father took ownership.
Yeah.
We were able to add a second and third screen in 1993 and 1995, but we had to do it almost out of our own pocket. We couldn't borrow any money because the estate would have to sign off on anything. So we had to do everything out of cash flow. And these weren't cheap screens. These were Selby towers. These were a lot of money.
That's a challenge to come in as the owner and literally be popping up 2 extra screens out of pocket, you know?
Well, at the time, we were trying to compete with the indoor theater in town for product. Everything had to go through a clearance, and it was hard to get a clearance or get first-run product from the studio with only one screen because, well, they can give all their product to the 8-screen indoor theater and not have to play the drive-in at all.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, if we hadn't added extra screens, we would have never survived. It would have never.
That was your way
with
the changes in the industry and didn't really have the choice. And you were always in a little bit different boat. Like you said, you have the population right around you. A lot of the drive-ins that have survived are off the beaten path. They are sometimes in the middle of nowhere. But for those drive-ins that are able to thrive near a big population point or city, that really does help, with their longevity.
We were kind of in a sweet spot, like in between Lockport and Amherst, where there's not a lot of development going on. If we were 3 miles further north towards the town of Lockport, it would be in the main strip and it would be gone. It would have been developed 20 years ago. We are 3 miles further south. We would have been in the Amherst Clarence business district, and the same thing. We're just in a sweet spot in between towns.
So you really operated that thing for over 20 years, just on your own.
I started working there in 83. I retired in 2022. So it's about 40 years.
Yeah. Wow.
35 years.
I take it you were around drive-ins and around the theater culture as a kid, even before you had the idea of like, hey, I could help out here.
Oh, as a kid, I used to walk the lot and pick the speakers up in the morning, test the speakers. They would run a cassette or tape system through the speaker systems in the morning.
Yeah.
So that we can, get speakers that didn't work, we left on the ground. The speakers that did work went back up on the pole.
Right.
And I started doing that when I had to reach up to put the speaker back on the top of the pole.
As soon as you were high enough to reach.
No joke.
Is it a standard cassette tape, or were you able to kind of pick your flavor as you were going around and picking up and repairing as far as the music choice?
Hey, we had no control over that. It's just, it was probably one of those Pepsi reel-to-reel tapes.
Right. Totally.
It played a lot of country music.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that era for you. Do any certain movies stand out that just swept you up as a child? I know that we all fell in love with drive-ins as kids, so it's something special to be said about the magic of the drive-in and lure of the drive-in to a youngster.
So I remember seeing Jaws, Grease, Star Wars, the original Star Wars when those first came out.
Yep.
And those were integral to building my love for the business, because those were just amazing experiences to watch as a kid.
Talk about just being in that perfect place as far as the movie culture. It's just like the blockbuster had arrived. It just swept, I'm sure, your business into a whole other realm of possibilities. And I'm sure it triggered that idea of, hey, we got to invest back in this thing if we're going to keep up.
Well, I mean, in the mid 70s, I was barely 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I think when Jaws came out, I was 7. When Star Wars came out, I was 9. But I was the most popular kid in the neighborhood because all the kids wanted to come with me, to the drive-in at night to watch Star Wars every night.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
All summer long, because we played it all summer long. And I had to have seen Star Wars 50 to 100 times.
Unreal. And at that time, you only had the single screen, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was a single screen, but it was still over 900 parking spots. It was a super drive-in, over 500 to 1,000 cars is considered a super drive-in.
Yeah.
And very large screen, 98 feet wide. And, anything close to 100 feet is typically on the larger side of average for a drive-in. There are very few drive-in screens left that are over 100 feet wide.
And what was the, as a kid, what were those choice things that were standouts at your drive-in versus when you were able to come in and put your touches on it? What are those things that kind of stand out for the Transit?
Well, we had a blacktop surface, which is kind of a blessing and a curse. In the summer, it's real hot.
Yeah.
But in the spring and the fall, you don't have to worry about it turning into a mud pit. You can stay open late in the season, October, November, and you still have a dry lot because it's a hard blacktop surface. The same thing when you're opening up in the spring, and in March and April, you've got that blacktop and you can get the cars in and no one's going to get stuck.
Must be a blessing too with cutting that grass, less grass to cut.
Yeah. There's a certain charm to the grass lots, but it is a lot of maintenance.
Absolutely. And was that classic marquee that I relate to the Transit and many of us relate to the Transit, was that there? Was that the classic marquee?
The current marquee that you see was built, I believe, in 2014.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 2000. Yeah, the original marquee, we had just finished refurbishing it, and it was hit by a drunk driver. And it just was demolished. No saving it. Yeah. We took the insurance settlement, and they said, this is an opportunity to build something really special. And if you look at the marquee, there's a lot of touches on that marquee, details that are kind of a tribute to the original 1960s, 70s elaborate drive-in marquees. All the neon, the big arrow. Like you guys have the big arrow, your big red arrow. We have a big blue arrow.
Yeah.
We wanted it to really look like it was original from 50 years ago.
Well, you did an amazing job. One of those things I just assumed because of the look of it that it was a well-maintained classic marquee, which is such a lure for drive-in fans. That's kind of the first thing that you see when you make the trek to these theaters, and it's always a thrill to see a classic looking at least marquee that does that job. Yeah,
it's a part of building your brand is to have that classic road sign.
Yep.
And you may not be open during the day, but we're on Transit Road. It's a 4-lane highway, and we're getting 30,000 people drive past it every day. So it's a great attraction. Whether we keep our neon on in the wintertime when we're not even open. We have it on a timer, so it turns on at dusk and it turns off at midnight. And we're not even open December through February and most of March, but we still have the marquee lit.
It's a staple of the town. Becomes that kind of calling card for you. I mean, we built our brand around that marquee. It was the first thing that we put on a T-shirt. First thing that was kind of the brand recognition of the Mahoning. So
well, you have to. You want to take advantages of as much nostalgia as you have with your screen, you've got the huge screen, just the classic drive-in culture, and the marquee is, that's a part of it.
I love that you have such a rich history and knowledge, seeing so much through your run. Were there any changes as far as how you guys handled admission from your grandfather, father to your run? Was it always per person? Did you do carload? Did it depend on how well you guys were doing at that moment in time?
So I remember when I first started working there, we were around $3 a person. It's always been per person, and children 11 and under were free. We didn't start charging per children until maybe 2006 or 2007. But we raised the ticket price steadily, as inflation and wages increased. Yeah. When I retired in 2021, it was at $12, and I think it's still at $12. I don't think the new owners.
That seems to be the industry standard now, is that $12 mark. Some creep under it, some creep a little bit over it, but that seems to be the kind of balance.
We've never done carload. The only time we've done carload would be for concert events, maybe.
Yeah, specialty things. It's, again, interviewing owners from all over the world now. It's one of those things. I think some people stick with it and stuck with it. Tradition at the drive-in is a big, big thing. So I think some people that have carload pricing may have, started that, stuck and worked for them, and it just became the norm. But I see more times than not, it's not carload pricing. People have that per head format, The studios used to balk at the carload pricing. They wanted to get, their piece per person. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But, there were drive-ins that were able to work around it, and we just never, stepped into that aspect of the admission. It was hard enough to start charging $2 a person for children, and now we're probably charging, I think, $7 per person.
Sure. Yeah. How times change. I'm curious. I mean, with the changing of the culture, Hollywood culture, at a certain point, having a single screen, it just was the norm, and Hollywood played into that in some senses. Movies could live on a screen, like you said, for weeks and months at a time. Was there a sense of like single screen blues when you were younger, or did that only come when the multiplex boom came?
I wanted multiple screens in the worst way for a very long time, mainly because the studios would come at us and say, okay, we want a 4-week minimum if you want to play such and such a picture, Jurassic Park, you name it. Yeah. And with only one screen, tying up for that many weeks was just brutal. It was brutal. Yeah. Sometimes we had to do it, and sometimes we'd get burned because the movie would bomb, and you're stuck with one screen. If you open a bomb, you're stuck with it. We opened Waterworld, and we were stuck with it for 4 weeks, and that's like almost half your summer. As soon as I could figure out a way to build the second screen, we had that sucker up in like mid-April of 1993, and I think the first picture we played on that back screen was the original Scream.
Awesome.
And we never would have played that picture in a million years if we didn't have the extra screen. It just wasn't a picture that was on our radar, and our booker came to us and said, no, you've got the second screen, give this picture a shot on the other screen. And the studio's very excited about it. And, we were able to get it on the screen, and it did gangbusters. And having multiple screens, you can diversify your audience each week. You can have a family picture on one screen and a horror movie, or comedy on another screen, and the second screen worked out so well. We added a third screen 2 years later, 1996, and 2001 we had to build a fourth screen because the demand for parking spaces was just bonkers. What happened between like 1985 and the year 2000 is almost all the other drive-ins in the Buffalo area closed down. They were taken over by developers. Yeah. The I-290, the Whirly, the Broadway.
So you naturally became like the only game in town.
almost the only game in town. The Buffalo Drive-In was another 3-screen drive-in, and they stuck around until 2007, but they eventually succumbed to, the property values and also the threat of digital. They decided they just didn't want to invest in digital, so they took the money and they put up a medical office park, and then we were the only game in town. And the same year as that happened, Walmart bought the Lockport Mall, tore down the Lockport Mall and built a super center, and inside the Lockport Mall was the Cinema 8.
Yeah, so
Lockport
you had no indoor either. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Our main indoor competition was wiped out at the same time as the drive-in. So from 2007 to 2011, we were just trying to keep up with the demand, the change of, the competition. And so it was a massive growth in our business due to that. At the same time, the drive-ins were doing fantastic business all throughout the 2000s and 2010s. We eventually ended up replacing our original concession building in 2011, just knocked the thing down and built a whole new concession stand.
Well, I'm curious. You were somebody who truly saw all those changes and shifts. What were some of the challenges that I guess your father was dealing with when you first came in? Now Hollywood has totally shifted and changed. Were there certain things that were kind of the standout thorns for him in that era?
Well, I think like in the late 70s through the mid 80s, trying to get product from the studios was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
A lot of the drive-ins switched over to like the American International stuff, or even worse.
Yeah.
The softcore pornography.
The nudies. Yeah.
Yeah, they're classics, but if they had a dry spell, that you were locked out from the big studios, and we had competition from that Lockport Mall, and if there was a big picture like a Ghostbusters in 1984,
yeah,
or an ET in 1982, they played it all summer. We never touched it.
Wow. So if you were running the AIP stuff and some of that, more kind of grindhouse, if you will, stuff, the major studios frowned upon that and wouldn't give you material?
We just tried our best to get whatever pictures we could, but we were basically locked out. And a lot of other drive-ins were in the same boat.
Yeah.
Where they were in competition with General Cinema or Lowe's, and it was called a clearance. And when these places opened up a picture, they'd hold on to it for 10 weeks. And drive-ins
just kind of keep you guys out of it.
Yeah. So that was very frustrating when I first got involved with the business. We had to fight tooth and nail to get anything. One of the first pictures I remember us breaking loose from that grip was Dragnet, 1986.
Oh yeah.
And we threw out a very big gross, and a few years later, I think it was 88, Paramount gave us Last Crusade, the Indiana Jones,
nice,
with Sean Connery, and we did tremendous business with that. So we started to build a reputation as a theater that could, gross a lot more than the indoor theater, but it was just like 1 or 2 pictures a year. It wasn't enough to sustain us with the additional screens,
right? And
then we could play more than one big picture a summer.
Did you guys feel the heat of, I'm a big video store guy. Did you or your father feel the heat of the kind of rental wave of, movies being available now on home video and the release scheduling and all that stuff? Was that a good thing or a bad thing at that time?
Well, the windows were so long. I mean, they were they started off at like 6 months, that it didn't really affect us too much. It wasn't a great thing. We weren't thrilled about it. People being able to watch movies at home, and instead of going to the cinema, they could go to the video store. None of the theater owners were thrilled about it, but I don't think it was really that big of a deal. In the drive-in business, you only really need 2 things. You need good weather and a good movie, and nothing else really matters.
Right, and they're coming, yeah.
Yeah. We saw that this last 2 weeks with Inside Out 2. The industry went from being buried to, this is as busy as it's ever been.
Yeah, to we're back. Yeah, and it always goes in waves. That's why the struggles that, people have, the kind of short-term things that come up, I always remind myself, I'm like, these things are constant. Hollywood is an ever-changing thing, and running a theater, especially a unique business like a drive-in with a single screen or multiple screens, now have become a challenge with the release dates and scheduling. It's just it's part of the gig. We always say the ability to pivot is probably the strongest suit that an operator can wear.
Well, that's what we did, and most theaters, drive-in theaters, did during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Is, when the studios stopped production and stopped releasing their movies, we tried other retro movies, independently produced horror movies,
concerts, whatever.
Concerts, you name it. And we actually had probably our best year ever from a cash flow and profit and loss standpoint.
Yeah.
During the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, mainly because our average film rental was like 15 percentage points lower than what we're used to.
Sure. Yeah.
Still getting really good crowds. So.
Yeah. And, the pandemic, we always say it's strange to say that it helped the drive-in culture, but it really did shine a light back on and this is up to you if you want to answer this question, if it's too personal or not. What was the motivation behind I know, very hard decision to move on from the transit? Was it something specific, or did you just kind of do that long run and felt like, okay, this is my time to step back and have somebody else run it?
Well, this is the thing. It really wasn't any one specific thing. It was like an accumulation of many, many different things.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest thing was watching people around me die young who should have had retirement and time to step away.
Yeah.
Other drive-in owners, my age, mid-50s, 3 of them died from COVID. 1 of them died from a heart attack.
Yeah.
Either very close to before the pandemic or during the pandemic. And I have personal friends, a friend died of brain cancer. A friend just dropped dead one day from a heart attack with no indication that he wasn't well.
Yeah.
So, I started to think about, do I really want to work till, run the business till I'm 70, 75 years old before I start to live my life and go out and do things.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, those were 2 very, very hard years. I don't think I've ever worked harder, ever.
Yeah.
Than during the pandemic. And then after 2021, we had supply shortages, staffing shortages. So it became extremely frustrating trying to run the business while, from week to week, we didn't know if we were going to get our inventory delivered. Yeah. And from a staffing standpoint, there were times in August and September that I didn't know if I was going to have enough staff willing to work to keep the drive-in open.
Yeah.
So that became, started to become a frustrating issue. And on top of that, probably for the previous 10 years or so, I think it started like around 2014, 2015. These cars, you hear it from everybody. The lights won't turn off and the radios won't stay on. And every night, and it gets worse every year because you get more new cars every year. You have to, a new model comes out.
You're running
or
all
the
over
same model.
Yeah.
The same model has an update of some kind. So you have to learn how to, relearn how to turn this particular vehicle's lights off. And from a day-to-day basis, we're a very busy drive-in. We're getting 1,000 cars a night on the weekend, 1,200 cars a night on the weekend. It is a ton of work trying to manage all of those vehicles with their lights and their radios.
Yeah.
So the experience of watching, a movie at the drive-in theater has to be protected from people leaving their lights on all night, or every time they open a door, their lights go on.
Oh, it's so hard.
So it became increasingly frustrating and less enjoyable as a business operator to have to deal with these annoyances night after night after night. And I didn't feel like I was running a drive-in theater anymore as much as I was, instructing people on how to keep their lights off and use their radios.
Right.
So all of those things combined to make me feel as though, there was one other issue, the advancement of streaming.
Yes.
Disney Plus, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime.
Never ending.
My business senses were telling me that if I were going to sell the business, this is the right time to do it.
Yeah.
Because we just had two outstanding growth years in 2020 and 2021, and 2015 to 2019 pre-pandemic were pretty good too. So when you sell a business, you want to be able to show a balance sheet, P&L, revenues that are not going down year after year. And if you look at the last 2 to 3 years, 2022, 2023, and 2024, those are all going to be down years, mainly due to the disruption in production from the Hollywood strikes.
Yeah.
Because there's not as many new movies to play, but there's also a lot of competition from streaming. So from the standpoint of selling my business, I got out when I could get the best price.
Yeah. Which makes total sense. And I gotta say, the thing I so love and respect about you now is I don't know if I know a guy that lives life more to the fullest. Every time I talk to you, you're out hiking on some trail, taking in this beautiful country. It's like the ultimate shift, It's like that thing went off and you were like, I am going to jump into this thing headlong. How did that whole shift happen? Or did you have that bug when you were running the theater? Were you always that kind of hiking guy, or was that your means to get out and see the world?
A little both. I always, one of the things I loved about the drive-in business was I loved the outdoors.
Oh yeah, same.
And I've always had an itch to travel, an itch to hike. I've always wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail, but most of my free time is in the wintertime, and it's no fun hiking when it's like, overnight 20 degrees or less, and daytime, you're dealing with when you're high elevation hiking mountains, you don't want to be up there when the weather's not good.
Yeah.
So the best time to hike Appalachian Trail is May, June, July, and August to September.
Drive-in season.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it. An overnight camping trip is fine, but for me, what I'm doing now, I'm hiking the section of trail from Connecticut to Maine, and right now I'm in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. I just completed Connecticut today.
You're talking what, weeks on the trail?
Months. Yeah, I'm gonna be on the trail from mid-June until mid-August, about 6 to 8 weeks.
Amazing. Yeah, it's
I get.
You can see.
I get to see all these great towns.
Yeah.
That are all up and down the Appalachian Trail. When I was doing the Virginia section, I visited Lexington, and I stopped by and saw the Hulls Drive-In.
Of course.
I also saw the Park Place Drive-In.
Yeah.
When I got up to Pennsylvania, I visited Mahoning.
That's right.
And I got
we
to
picked you up.
I got to hang out. Yeah, you guys are right near Bake Oven Knob, and it was right off the trail.
How perfect.
The trail actually goes almost right past Becky's Drive-In.
Yes.
And I got to stop off and visit them. The Warwick Drive-In Theater, they're about 2 miles off the trail from the road crossing. And they actually allow Appalachian Trail hikers camp out overnight.
Oh, so cool. You're too
and watch the movie. It's spectacular.
Well, I gotta, ask, you've become such a mouthpiece for the culture. Somebody that, again, I'm not alone in this. I look up to you for the inspiration and the fact that you had such success in this business for so long. What was that kind of motivation beyond your lot to kind of get involved with, whether it's Utah or any of these other outfits that, allowed you to put yourself out there more than just, hey, I'm the transit drive-in owner and working within the confines of this lot?
I've just always had an appreciation for the drive-in business, and it's kind of a sadness too to see the business from the early 90s, over 1,000 screens. You can just see it dying off a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And each drive-in closes and shuts down for a different reason, whether it's high real estate value or change in ownership due to the original owners passing it on and the next generation not having an interest. The development that goes on around the drive-ins, where you just can't rationalize keeping a drive-in open.
Yeah.
When there's a Walmart across the street, and I've always tried to help other drive-ins in any way that I can. For example, Teresa in the Sydney Auto View Drive-In Theater, I did a fundraiser for them and helped them convert to digital. And I wish I could have helped more drive-in theaters, but I picked them because I felt that they were the most deserving. Worthy. I mean, they really loved their business, but they were in a situation, being in a small town in a rural area, that they just didn't have the resources to do the digital conversion.
Yeah.
And I was able to raise over $9,000 for their conversion, plus find a B stock projector that was less expensive than a new projector, and they were able to finance the rest and make it happen.
That's what I love about this industry currently, is that it is incredibly familial. Each drive-in has this kind of familial atmosphere running it. But the connection between owners and this willingness now for every owner to want to support their neighbor is just such a unique thing for any industry. Normally it's me out for myself, but I see it with Maddie over at Shanks as well. He's taken the same approach that we have. Is we have a voice. We are going to try to shout out as many theaters and independent houses and drive-ins as possible, because that's kind of what it takes, is somebody to be on that pulpit and shouting it to get people's attention, because without people like that, it's very easy to forget that these things are there and that it's up to you to keep them surviving.
Any drive-in that's still operating today, it takes a large commitment. And all these different operators around the country, they're mainly in it because they love the business. They love doing something unique. And it just takes a large effort. And there's a lot of frustration involved, but they keep going and they keep doing it year after year. And they want it to stay open forever because they want to continue that legacy. And when I sold the Transit, I made sure that it was sold to someone who would keep it open as a drive-in.
Right.
There's no guarantee it's going to stay open indefinitely. Who knows, 10 years from now what's going to happen. But the people I sold it to, they were, I did my part to keep it open. I didn't have to do that. You see it all the time. The drive-in theater closes. They decide to shut it down. It goes on the market. And they just say, whoever offers us the most money is theirs. And it doesn't matter if it's going to stay a drive-in or not. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But I didn't even list the Transit for sale. I called around to some people who I knew were interested. The first call I made was to a local cinema operator, an indoor operator who I knew was interested. And that's the only phone call I had to make. As soon as he picked up the call and we had a conversation, I told him what my number was, and he wanted to see the paperwork. And I gave him the paperwork, and he accepted my number, which was a very reasonable number. I didn't want to hand him the burden of having to pay off a huge loan to take over the business.
Sure, yeah.
And it's, so far, it's worked out great. They're doing a great job. And I can go off and have some fun and know that, I'm not responsible for closing something that was very important to the community.
Well, I think you made the right decision. Seeing from what they're doing now, it's clear that they have all the heart. And it's a couple that runs it. Am I correct?
It's a couple brothers. It's a couple brothers. Plus, the family is involved too. The wives, the kids.
Right.
It's still a family. It's still a family-owned business, family-operated, and and they're enjoying it. Which is, if you're not going to enjoy running a theater, you shouldn't be in the theater business.
Yeah, it's such a unique hat to wear in this new era. And, we are so beyond proud to be mouthpieces and kind of carry on the tradition of your mantra in that, it takes the support. It takes the unified front to make a movement. And that's our whole kind of motto now, even with this podcast, is the chance of a new person stumbling upon this thing and becoming a lifelong drive-in fan. That's so important. I don't want to take up all your time. I know we have a hard out today. I do want to give Mark the opportunity to pick your brain as well.
Oh, Mark is still here?
Yeah. See, I listen in the background, and one by one, I look at all the questions I had written down, and I just cross them off as Virgil addresses them, and then I come out at the end, and I'm like, "What's your favorite movie?" No. This is the most loaded question. What advice would you have to someone foolhardy enough to want to go into the drive-in business in 2024? Say they had enough funds to build one from the ground up. What would you suggest their best approach to success might be?
Well, look around and check out some of the more successful drive-ins in your region, as many as you can, and just see how they do things. Especially if it's a busy drive-in, because I think you'd want to build and open a drive-in that's going to be a busy drive-in. There's all kinds of different drive-ins. There's these quiet, rural drive-ins where for them 100 cars is a busy night. And then there's the drive-in theaters that they're going to have 1,000 cars on the weekend, every weekend, because they're in a highly populated area. So the Autorama would be one of those drive-ins. The Tibbs would be one of those drive-ins. The Ford Wyoming would be one of those drive-ins where every weekend they're getting 1,000 cars or more on each night because they've got the capacity, they've got the population. So you have to know what your market is and what your expectations are. But look at the way that these different drive-ins do things and just try to emulate their success.
One other thing that I do ask everybody who's run a drive-in for any period of time, do you have any wild and wacky stories that come to mind? We have the ones that we talk about are, there's somebody who attended on a motorized unicycle once. We've had wedding proposals. We had lightning storms behind the screen during The Bride of Frankenstein. I mean, were there any legendary stories from within your tenure at the Transit that legally until now you were not able to tell?
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that.
No. This is a good story. So this goes back about 35 years, 25 years. It was the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It was opening weekend. And I got a message on the answering machine, and I called the lady back, and she asked, can can we accept walk-ins if we don't have a car? They wanted to see the movie. So back then I was kind of, less flexible maybe, just my response was, sorry, you have to be in a car, if you're going to come to see the movie. And they were disappointed, but they understood. And I thought that was going to be the end of it. That night they show up, and they're like the first people online, and they have a cardboard box that's painted to look like a car. And they're inside the big cardboard box. And of course I had to let them in.
What a world.
That's a prize winner.
Yeah, I mean, you have to respect their determination, their ingenuity.
Was it Flintstone style where it sounded like when they went in, or?
No, it was just, they had a little flap, for the back window, and a little flap for the front window, and a little flap for the side window, and it was kind of
making it work.
It looked like a cardboard car, like you'd build the cardboard car if you were gonna play around in your driveway. And they painted it red with some spray paint, and
wow.
And they just they lived right down the road, and they just walked on over and said, "Hey, we're here to see the movie." And
I love it so much.
A few years later, I posted the story on our Facebook page. It's probably like around 2005, 2010, somewhere in there. And the mother responded, and she posted some photos that they took with a film camera back then, and of the teenage kids in their cardboard car getting ready to go to the drive-in.
Talk about a photo op. Now it would be viral on social media.
I think it was, because I did post the story at one point, and it didn't go crazy, but it got quite a few likes and comments, and never been repeated.
Yeah.
It's a unique thing that probably you'll never see again.
Once in a lifetime. Anything to get to the drive-in, right? Well, I have another question for you. I have such respect for your knowledge, and this current drive-in culture maybe more than anybody. Besides, obviously, the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, are there any other standout drive-ins that you just absolutely love for whatever reason, and what would that reason be?
Oh boy,
I know it's so hard.
There are so many great drive-ins, and I will give you a few names. When you see these top 10 lists, you have to wonder, have these people even visited these drive-ins, or are they just throwing out?
I feel like they just look at previous top 10 lists and
yes, they do. Yep.
I'm not really sure, or they try to scatter a few drive-ins, or different parts of the country to have more appeal for more clicks. I mean, I've been to a lot of drive-ins, and there are a lot of very special drive-ins. They're all unique and special and great in their own ways. So it's almost like, I wouldn't say like I have a best drive-in list.
Right.
But I would say I have a favorite drive-in list, my personal favorite. But I think it's unfair to say any one drive-in is any better or worse than another drive-in, because they're just different. And I like the small town rural drive-ins a lot, and I like the big city or the big town drive-ins a lot. My top two favorite drive-ins: Silver Lake Drive-In in Perry, New York.
Yeah.
And I mean, they just have everything.
Stand out for them, yeah.
It's not any one thing. It's just they have everything. They have a separate restaurant with a barbecue pit. They have a stage where they do country line dancing, and they do bands, and they do karaoke. They have a game room with all kinds of video games and redemptions. And then they have a birthday party room, where they can serve pizza. They have a pizzeria. They have an ice cream shop. It is unbelievable. And then the drive-in theater, it's an original 1948 screen tower, pole barn construction that they have maintained meticulously.
Yeah.
Perfect condition. Perfect condition. It looks just as good now as it did 70
When they
years
raised
ago.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Their parking lot is the same way. Perfectly graded. Still have all the poles. Still run the speakers, and they have a FM sound system. They have a second screen. They do car shows. It is an incredible operation.
That's awesome.
And I don't think there's anything else that comes close to providing the scope of services that they do.
Yeah.
Number 2 would be Becky's.
Yeah, baby. Local love. I was there last week.
Could any drive-in do anything any better from top to bottom? Whether it's they're just phenomenal, fantastic facility.
They do such a good job of preserving the culture too. I love the national anthem before every screening. They have literally, like I said, the vibe is so classic drive-in, and they get all the credit, because they are the family drive-in. They are the family draw, but they do such a great job balancing their programming. They'll have their retro night. They'll have their edgier stuff on screen number 2. They just have perfected it over the years.
I'm just really impressed with, you look at everything and everything is clean, well-maintained. It screams fun from the moment you pull in, but it's still classic and nostalgic. It's just an incredible job that they do from top to bottom everywhere. The restrooms are kept clean. They work hard. You can tell that there's love put into their business.
Absolutely. I love taking the Munchkin there. It's when we get to this time of year when they're open every day, I look forward to coming up on during the week, to start prepping, because I can get that night where it's like, yeah, let's go take in, some magic over down the road.
So I've probably been to another 50 or so drive-in theaters, but I don't want to, name them all, in any particular order. But there are fantastic drive-ins all across the country. I've been to drive-ins in Florida. I've been to drive-ins in California.
Yeah.
I would like to see more drive-ins, but, it's tough to see them all.
Well, now that you're out and about living your life, I'm sure you're going to make the point to see as many as you can. I am curious, since, again, I put you on this pedestal, are there people for you that kind of stand out where it's like, oh, this was my guy during my run, or this is the guy that's, stand out, getting information out there or whatever, support? I just love this community,
When I first became involved with Utah, it was the early 2000s, I think 2001, maybe 2002. I established a close friendship with Jim Goebel.
Yes.
So he, at the time I met him, owned the Cinderella Twin in Denver.
Yes.
That, he was operating the drive-in, but he didn't own the property. And the property was, I think, around 2010, maybe sooner, between 2005 and 2010, they tore it down and they built apartment buildings. Jim had no control over that. But he owned a second drive-in, which was the Starlight in Wichita.
Yes.
And he was smart enough, and he had the opportunity that he owned the property and the drive-in, paid a manager to run it because he lived in Denver, but he would visit quite often. And he was of the same philosophy as me. If he had a choice of doing something for $100 or $1,000, he did it for $1,000. He tried to find the best solution as opposed to the more economical or least expensive solution. He maintained all his ramp lights, all his junction boxes had diffusers that lit up throughout both parking lots. And he put in 4K digital projection when, most drive-ins were only putting in 2K. He put in 4K.
He invested.
He wanted to have that extra quality. His concession stand, his restrooms, and it still is. It's a very special drive-in because it was built to replace an original drive-in in the early 70s. They just tore everything down, the screen, the snack bar, everything, and rebuilt it. And they did it. Jim wasn't involved when this happened. He was the next owner, but the owners that did this work, they did everything from top to bottom the right way. And, you know, it has a super long entrance driveway, huge screens. Both screens were over 100 feet wide, huge parking lots. I think one screen was 600 cars and the other screen is 800 cars.
Yep.
The restaurant, huge restroom capacity, 2 cafeteria lines in the snack bar, air conditioning, everything from top to bottom was just done as good as it could be done, engineering, everything. So it was a very special drive-in, and because Wichita is not a huge metropolis like a lot of other places, it wasn't taken out by developers in the 70s and 80s like most of the super big drive-ins were.
Yeah.
Due to the size of their lots and the proximity to the population areas and the commercial retail areas. And Jim passed away in 2014, and he gave the drive-in to his manager.
Bless his soul. Have that foresight.
He, more than anything else, wanted to make sure that it continued as a drive-in. He didn't have any other family that wanted to have anything to do with the business. He didn't have anyone to leave it to. All he cared about was continuing the legacy of the drive-in business. Unfortunately, the person that he gave the drive-in to tried to sell the drive-in 3 years later to a warehouse developer. And I had to step in. I flew down to Wichita as soon as I heard what was going on, and I put on a Save the Starlight rally in the park next to the drive-in. And I told the Wichita paper that I will match the price up to $750,000. And I want to buy the drive-in and keep it open as a drive-in theater.
Unbelievable.
He didn't list it as for sale or notify anyone. The season was over in October, and he just made an announcement. It was being sold and closed and put everything up for auction. But I was able to, through public pressure, basically shoot down the sale, stop the auction, and a local investor stepped in, bought the drive-in theater, and me and Blake from the Emerald Twin, Blake Smith, we're going to go in as partners to operate the drive-in theater. I asked Blake, I told him, if you want to take this on your own, and if you don't need my capital, I'd rather just have you run it.
Yeah.
Because I'm a million miles away and he's 3 hours away in Tulsa. And he thought he could handle it, and he's been doing a great job ever since. But if I didn't step in, that drive-in would be a warehouse right now. It would be gone.
Criminal. And that's the stuff we hear all the time. I never fault anybody. The decisions that people make with their personal drive-ins is totally up to them. When you hear something like that there was that succession plan in place and someone squandered it, what a heartbreaker, Yeah,
that's why if he didn't want to run the drive-in anymore, no big deal. It's fine. Sell the business, but give other people the opportunity to keep it open as a drive-in theater instead of just announcing it's been sold.
Rob your community of that, over greed or whatever the situation was.
Yeah, it still boils my blood that he didn't make more effort to bring in another operator. But it was saved, and it's in good hands, and doing phenomenal now. So that's what's most important.
Well, thank goodness for the great Rick Cohen. We appreciate you coming on to the podcast. This is a long time overdue. We so appreciate your friendship. We so appreciate your support and knowledge, not just of the current drive-in culture, but the drive-in culture as a whole. You really are a staple figure, and you're right at the top of the list when it came to this transition that we went through this year and any advice that we needed. So I thank you so much for that on a core level.
Well, anytime, I'm always here.
Well, I think that covers it. I would normally say, hey, is there anywhere that people can find you? I would say if you guys are on the Facebook drive-in fan pages, likely you will see Rick's name popping up.
I thought you were going to say if these people are on the Appalachian Trail, that's where they can find him.
That too, yeah. If you guys are hikers, chances are you're going to be passing paths.
Yeah, I am planning to visit the drive-in in Bridgeton, Maine. I'll be up that way probably sometime in July. But no, I'm pretty active on the Speaker Post Facebook group, and you want to send me a friend request, I'm pretty open to friend requests as long as you have an involvement in the drive-in business of some kind. And
yeah.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
Well, it means the world. It really does. It is all about the community. It's all about the support and lifting each other up, and you are the perfect example of that. And we certainly carry on our business the same way that you ran yours. So thank you again. And I think on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night and God bless you.